been a while since we have posted a video. A lot has changed. Our kids started getting sick a lot, especially Daxton, but we had started them in daycare, and so it was kind of expected. People said that, oh, your kid's gonna be sick all the time. But it was like he went one day every 2 weeks and then had fevers of 103 degrees Fahrenheit for like weeks on end. And Tylenol wasn't bringing it down, so he was sick all the time. We were constantly in and out of the ER. They didn't have an Instacare there in Okinawa. And they kept saying, just a virus. Nothing we can do for you, sorry, and sent us home. And then one morning, it was a Monday morning, Daxton woke up with a black eye. We thought that was very strange. He did not hit it. Michael had been home all weekend. We'd all been together and nothing. There's no reason he should have a black eye. And Michael took him into a doctor's appointment and they, oh, he's probably just hit it on something, I'm sure. But by later that day, his second eye had bruised over. So he had two black eyes. It was just kind of on the inside there. It was strange. He didn't hit it. We would have heard him cry. But the doctors just kept saying, I'm sure he just hit it on something you probably just didn't see, or he hit it on something, he hit it on something. And I was like, I would have known. I'm his mom, I'm watching, I'm there, I'm attentive. I would have known. So I started doing my own research and started coming across things like cancer. Oh my gosh, I thought I was crazy. What are the chances your kid has cancer? But he was sick all the time. He randomly got black eyes. Finally, I expressed my concerns about cancer to the ER doctor, and he said that the chances were very slim. It wasn't very likely, and that the testing was invasive for these little guys. So it would be better to not if I had any doubt. But he offered that he could do the testing. But at that point in time, we'd been in the ER for 5 hours, and Daxton just wanted to go home. I wanted to go home. So we opted to decide to follow up with the pediatrician instead. So then we went home. The next day, the pediatrician called and asked if we wanted to come in for a follow-up. I declined, actually, because Daxton had been doing better, and I thought, I'm going crazy, right? My kid doesn't have cancer. What are the chances? But shortly after I declined the follow-up visit with the pediatrician, I felt a lump on Daxton's head, right behind his ear, that I was like, I'm pretty sure that was not there before. That's new. I'm taking him in. So we called the pediatrician back and got an appointment. And when I took him, it was the following day, it was a Tuesday. When I took him back in for his appointment, I didn't even get a chance really to tell them that I was going to demand the testing to see if he had cancer, because they felt a lump in his abdomen. And again, I still thought it's probably nothing. Our daughter had lots of medical issues. We took her into the doctor all the time and never got any answers. Nothing wrong with her. That's all they ever said. But the doctor called in another doctor to feel and verify the lump that they were feeling in his abdomen. that wasn't supposed to be there. And they decided to do an x-ray. The x-ray showed an abdominal mass that wasn't supposed to be there. But it wasn't extremely clear, so they admitted him to the hospital at that appointment. It's weird. You go for just a doctor appointment and then all of a sudden your kid is hospitalized. I thought it was like one night, and then we'd be going home the next day. And Daxton never went home to our house there. He didn't get to. That night, through the night, they did a CAT scan on his abdomen and did lab work on him. And I kept, I don't know, I didn't know anything. In the CAT scan, the technician kept asking me, is he constipated? Has he been really constipated? So I kind of knew something. I knew he was seeing something, because Daxton wasn't constipated. Quite the opposite, in fact. But that night in the hospital, I just had this very distinct impression that no matter what happened, Daxton was going to be okay. The next day, the doctor confirmed to us. So Tuesday he was admitted. Wednesday the doctor confirmed to us that it's probably cancer. The blood work, the CT scan, x-ray, everything shows that. And he was guessing neuroblastoma, which was my guess based on my research. He told us to prepare, that we were going to be leaving, possibly Thursday, the very next day. Our beautiful tropical paradise, our home, had to leave. We had a few more days than that because dealing with insurance, so we didn't end up leaving until Sunday morning. Our flight left. The days leading up to that were stressful and terrifying and filled with no answers and so many difficulties. They moved Daxton from whatever inpatient ward he was in to the adult ICU. They did not have a children's center for him to go to there. They had a NICU and an ICU, nothing in between. And it was hell. No toys, no kid shows on TV, no experienced doctors or nurses or anybody. Nobody knew how to do anything on a kid. Poor Daxton was tortured. They were drawing labs on him multiple times a day. And to do that, they had to poke him for an IV, which his IV just kept falling out. I had to hold him down while they put the needle in him and moved it around to try to get his little tiny veins. And And then they'd pull it out and say, oh, we couldn't get it. We have to do it again. That's around when I lost all sense of propriety. I happened to still be breastfeeding at the time. I had been wanting to wean him. And then that happened. He was diagnosed and I wasn't going to wean him. I'm not going to take that away from him. Suddenly I would just nurse in front of all of the doctors and nurses, and because it didn't matter. My comfort level didn't matter. What mattered was trying to provide him some sort of comfort, some relief from that torture. Anyways, so the doctor said we couldn't fly commercially because Daxton wasn't stable enough. So we had to wait for the insurance to get us our own private jet. Thank you, insurance. They gave him a couple of blood transfusions before we left. And then Sunday morning, got in an ambulance and rode to the airport, onto the runway, up to the plane. We boarded onto the plane, just Daxton and me. We couldn't take everybody, so we had to split up. Michael stayed behind with Maddie and Christian, and I went with Daxton. So we got on the flight. It was just the two pilots and a nurse and a respiratory therapist. The flight went smooth. It was great, like no issues. It was quite fun for Daxton, actually. He got to just kind of play around. They were super nice and gave him stuffed animals, and they let him fly the plane. And as far as traveling with a baby goes on a really long flight, that was the way to do it. We got here to Utah, rode in an ambulance over to Primary Children's Hospital, and they started doing all their testing and stuff. We discovered he had stage 4 neuroblastoma, high risk category. The doctors said he has a 65% chance of making it, which I am actually very grateful for. It's significantly better than the 30 to 40% that I was finding online. It was more than 50%. He's got more chance of living than he does dying. They laid out the treatment course for us. It's a long one. So he has already completed 4 rounds of chemo at this point in time. The next thing coming up is surgery to remove the main abdominal tumor in his stomach. Then after they do that, he will have another round of chemo. And those are the 5 rounds of the intensive chemo. Which the first couple of rounds he did really good with. These last few rounds are getting harder and harder for him. He doesn't sleep very good. He vomits a lot. He just constantly cries for no reason. Apparently, he has cancer. He has every reason to cry. Anyways, after his 5th round of chemo, then he's going to have 2 stem cell transplants. which his immune system will be so low, so depleted, that they will be keeping him in the hospital. They told me to expect a month-long hospital stay per stem cell transplant. After he completes the 2 stem cell transplants, then he will do radiation. So far, they cannot tell me how extensive or intense that will be, because it will depend on how things go until then and what the tests say, if it's working, if it's made impact or not. And then after radiation is completed, then he will have 6 months of being on a couple of different medications combined. Don't know anything about those yet. We will find out. So that's catching up with us. We went from paradise, perfect lives that I didn't even know could exist, to having to leave paradise and watch our kids suffer and be separated. Michael and the kids did finally make it here to Utah with us. It took about a month for them to get here, and it was stressful for him there trying to get here. But I'm grateful we had that time in Okinawa, Japan. It taught me that you don't have to settle in life. You can have your life the way you want it to. And our life sucks right now. And it's going to until he's done with treatments. But then also, hopefully, we can build our life again, get back to where we were and what we want it to be.